Hello everyone, my name is Gabby, and welcome back to another Dragon Ball Super review. This time reviewing episode 67. It looks like everything is over, but even after being sliced in half and disintegrated, Zamasu's spirit is still alive. It begins covering the earth and destroying everything, and there's absolutely nothing the weakened fighters can do to stop it. As Goku tries to find another Senzu, instead he finds the button given to him by Zeno. Realizing they have nothing to lose at this point, he presses it, and the Zeno from Trunks' timeline appears. And when Zeno sees the carnage Zamasu has wrought, he decides to just erase that entire universe, with the cast getting away in the time machine just in time. Goku brings the other Zeno to his timeline Zeno to be his playmate, while everyone else figures out what to do with future Trunks and Mai. Whis realizes that there'd be another timeline similar to the future one that Beerus created when he destroyed Zamasu. While there would also be other versions of Trunks and Mai there, they agreed to travel to that time, seeing how all the people they knew and loved would be alive there. And Whis can convince Beerus to deal with Zamasu in that timeline so the events won't be repeated. So future Trunks and Mai leave for that time, thanking everyone for their help, ending the Future Trunks arc of Dragon Ball Super. So, what did I like about this episode? Well, first of all, I honestly really appreciated how they actually used the Zeno Button. See, when I first found out about this Zeno Button, I was completely terrified as to how they were going to use it. I was scared that it was going to be this plot device that basically Toriyama put in because nowadays he is just so lazy as a storyteller that he can't be bothered coming up with proper climaxes. So it would just be the moment they start fighting and the moment the villain seems like he might be a little bit too powerful, instead of actually coming up with a way to beat them, they're just going to press the button and then God's going to show up and fix all the problems for them. Basically my problem was I was scared that they were going to use the button as an excuse so they didn't have to write a climax. And luckily that wasn't the case, because last episode there kind of was a climax. We did see Zamasu get stronger, and we did see everyone literally to put out their pretty big, crazy, giant trump cards to go and try and defeat Zamasu. And honestly, under all circumstances, they basically did win from there. The point wasn't that they pressed the Zeno button because the characters couldn't be bothered coming up with ways of fighting. It was more just they used the Zeno button because at that point Zamasu had basically turned into a weird metaphysical force of destruction and consumption, and there's basically no way that the characters in Dragon Ball Z would be able to fight something like that. Something that's just basically consuming the planet and destroying everything, and it's not like a physical form of something that you can just beat up and punch really hard. And it is really interesting because the whole Zeno destroying the universe thing, and that's the thing that defeats Zamasu, I think it's kind of interesting because everyone was complaining about this before, but, they finally did something where they finally tried to make the power scale go bigger, make the stakes go higher than anything we'd ever seen before. I mean, obviously, if we compare it to, End of the Buu saga, Majin Buu blows up the Earth. That's a really, really big deal. It gets fixed in the end, but it's still a really big deal that shows just how powerful these characters are. In the end of the Future Trunks arc, Future Trunks' entire universe gets destroyed. And yes, once again, it's kind of not as much of a big impact as you think it will be because they find ways to work around it, but I do appreciate that it feels actually bigger. It feels bigger than Dragon Ball Z, and I like that. And once again, there seems to be a common thing now, but, if we're going to talk about reasons why I don't have an issue with this being the end of the arc, so I'm going to do another comparison to something that's not Dragon Ball that it kind of reminds me of. So, last episode I was going to talk about magical girls and stuff. This episode, it's the end of Zamasu, it kind of reminds me of the end of, a Metroid game. Where it's Samus beats Mother Brain, and Samus could even beat Mother Brain in a sort of weird kind of symbolic metaphysical way, but at the end of the day, there's still going to be the self-destruct sequence. Samus still has to get off that planet, or the spaceship, and it's still going to be destroyed afterwards, and anything that is good that is left on that spaceship or that planet is going to be destroyed. So basically, I'm trying to say it's not an anticlimax. It is not an anticlimax. This isn't just a cop-out. This is an intentional climax. People write stories like this. I don't really know why they did it yet. I'm still trying to work that out, I think, but it's definitely intentional. It is not them writing themselves into a corner. Because, the Zeno button was introduced so much earlier on in the story. It seems like they wanted this to happen. It also successfully deals with kind of my pet peeve I had with episode 55, and that was that when Zamasu got stronger, he didn't immediately start trying to come up with a new plan that would automatically raise the stakes. That basically happened this episode, so I'm glad that actually happened. Zamasu survives after being cut in half and all that stuff. So now he's immediately basically starting to shed his god form and basically like cover the entire universe and become the universe and, you know, some kind of weird assimilation plot. So that's interesting. They did that. I liked that. As for what I didn't like about this episode, while this ending was kind of satisfying as a way of defeating this force that was just so broken that no one knew how to defeat it, the ending wasn't particularly satisfying in kind of concluding Trunks' sort of character arc, if there was a character arc. Obviously, he got the final hit on Zamasu, and that was very, very satisfying, and the whole point is he wouldn't have been able to do anything else, but obviously the fact is, at the end of the day, Trunks' timeline is destroyed now. The timeline that he initially lived in, the one that he knows and loves, it is gone for good. It is never coming back. And now he kind of just has to like flee his timeline like he's some kind of refugee trying to like, and now he has to go to another timeline that's somewhat similar but not exactly the same. And it's like, it's kind of strange because it doesn't feel like it's very satisfying for Trunks' character or the character arc or this arc in general. It's very bittersweet. It's very like Trunks didn't really get what he wanted and Mai didn't. He didn't really get to save his world. In fact, he ended up kind of destroying his world. Basically, there's no character arc there. Trunks basically goes from running from one timeline to running to another timeline, and there's kind of no real change there except he might have gotten a new form, maybe, I guess. And that's kind of sad because no one else really also got a character arc in this arc, so essentially the only people who got character development are basically like Zamasu, who's a villain, and maybe Kid Trunks. And that's kind of disappointing. Also, a moment that's honestly really cool but really weird is the whole Gohan thing at the very end, like just as Trunks is about to leave, Gohan shows up at the last minute, sort of like wishes him well, and then Future Trunks is like, oh, it's like my mentor, he's like coming back and he's sort of coming to help me, and I'm like, it's nice, it was a really nice moment, I liked it, and I also liked the idea that perhaps there's an implication that they are still keeping the whole Gohan is training subplot, although I'm not entirely sure about that, but the problem was, it was like, that was like the big thing, the big moment they wanted to like end everything off on, it seemed, but then it was like, you know, this would have had a much bigger impact if Gohan had done absolutely anything of note in this arc and had shown up for more than literally 2 episodes. It's a significant moment, but only really a significant moment in the context of Dragon Ball Z. Not really a significant moment in terms of the future Trunks arc, because Gohan was just such a non-issue. So it was like, fun moment, but it kind of came out of nowhere, and it felt like it had nothing to do with this arc, but rather just, you know, an arc that happened literally 20 years ago. So as for next episode, Goku is finally deciding to gather the Dragon Balls to wish Kaiosama back to life. Unfortunately, it seems like everyone else just happened to really want to wish around the exact same time. I'm not going to say it's a filler episode, but it's a fun slice of life episode kind of in between arcs because the Future Trunks arc is over. That was the last episode. So either way, next episode will be interesting. It should be fun. Hopefully characters aren't too exaggerated, but it'll be fun because it looks like a lot of the cast is going to be joining in. So I want to see it. So that was Dragon Ball Super episode 67. It's been like over 24 hours. I've watched it like at least sort of 2.5 times and I still don't really know what to think of the ending. I'm not going to say it's like controversial or if it's even really that bad because the thing is, it was very much intentional. From the very start, it seemed like that's how they wanted to end it. I just don't really know what it was supposed to be and what it's supposed to mean for the future. The fact is, it kind of feels like this arc isn't over. It feels like Future Trunks' character arc isn't over, and Mai's character isn't over. Like, they might come back later on. Like, maybe this arc, or at least the ending of this arc, all that stuff with the timelines being destroyed was just trying to set up a new status quo for something to do with Future Trunks later on in the story. And if that happens, then that would make sense. That would kind of explain why this arc ended the way it did. At this point, we really can't tell until, like, you know, some of those things actually happen. So at this point, it's just kind of weird speculation. I don't know why they did it that way. It's not the most satisfying ending in the world, but on the other hand, at least it didn't end with basically them just not even fighting and just pressing the button immediately and having Zeno destroy Zamasu, and that's just the end of the story with no stakes, no consequences, and no changes to the status quo whatsoever. At least something happened as a result of this, even if there was something like Future Trunks' timeline literally being destroyed. And I'm sure that people now are going to be asking me, you know, what are my opinions of the arc overall? And the answer to that is, I'm not completely sure. The fact that I'm still not really sure what to think about this episode, I think pretty much shows you I don't really know how to think about this arc. I feel like this is something like we actually do need to just go past, like wait like about a month or at least like 2 weeks or so, and then we can, like, once we're out of the Future Trunks arc, I can actually start looking back into it and like look at the whole thing like from start to finish and actually like evaluate my opinions of it. So maybe when that happens, maybe I'll do a video about it, maybe I'll be in someone else's video about it. At this point I've actually got no idea, but yeah, at this point I don't know what to think about the Future Trunks arc, and I honestly don't want to think about the Future Trunks arc. At least, not just yet. I kind of just want to continue going forward, like not think about it for a while, so I can actually like look at this with kind of a clean slate, kind of just a complete fresh judgment. We've got some hints about what the next arc is going to be, although we don't really have any hints as to how long that arc is going to be, and whether it's actually like a really long, big, important arc, or it can just like sort of a mini arc kind of transitioning from one arc to the other. But either way, that sounds interesting. If you guys have read the spoilers for that, it does sound interesting. I don't know where that's going to go. I'm not as like hyped as I used to be. Super was not magically saved during the Future Trunks arc because it did still have issues, and issues that sometimes were issues that Super hadn't really had up until this point because they hadn't really tried stuff like this up until this point. But the Future Trunks arc was definitely interesting, was definitely ambitious, and did a lot of really, really, really interesting things, even if there were a lot of stupid things in there as well. So either way, I just want to see what Super is going to do from now on. It's not the most amazing thing in the world, and I'm sure a lot of people have decided they've basically given up. I'm still watching it. I'm not like incredibly excited every single week, of course, but I'm still watching it, and I do want to see what they're going to keep doing because the shows definitely keep going. It's sold so well. Like, I'm sure it's going to keep going for a while. So this is Gabby signing out, and I'll see you all next week. Bye, guys.